The Unlikely Innovators with Mike Commito and Steve Gravel. Presented by Cambrian R&D and the Center for Smart Mining.
All right, we're back with another episode of The Unlikely Innovators. Of course, Steve Gravel and Mike Commito. Mike, there's not too many times, there's many times that our guests are inspiring. But as two folks, yourself and myself, that are intimately involved in the college sector, skills training, trades and technology is something that we really care a lot about. And I found this episode with Chloé Arsenault was particularly inspiring. What did you think?
Yeah, no, it was a great to chat with Chloé again. Chloé's 21 years old. She's in the mining or the civil and mining engineering technician program at College Boreal. So she's, pursuing her dream of joining the skilled trade. She's working full-time underground this summer at Creighton Mine for Valley. And the day that we spoke to her was her only Friday off in the entire summer, and she chose to spend it with Steve and I for a half hour or so. So we really appreciate her doing that. But yeah,
Yes.
I just think it's really inspiring because her message is to bring awareness to the skilled trades for women and girls, that this is an opportunity for you. Again, it's still a very underrepresented sector, and we're still continuing to try to increase efforts to involve, young women and people from other marginalized groups to see themselves in the skilled trades and to join the skilled trades. So like, to have Chloé take that up as part of her platform, as part of what she's doing with her pageantry under the Tiaras and Trades platform, is really inspiring. Because again, I don't know about you, Steve, but when I was 21 years old, I was not thinking about making the world a better place. I don't even know what I was doing. It probably wasn't contributing much to society at that time, but Chloé certainly is, while holding down a full-time job while doing her studies. So just a
Yeah.
very inspiring young woman.
Yeah, I would like to say that you were probably by that point aged out of slapping the bass for Spitshine.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe a couple reunion concerts by that point,
Yeah,
but I think it
maybe
was
there's a
all but
reunion
done.
tour.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe go on the roof of Eddie's or something
There we
like that
go.
and pull a Beatles move. But anyway, I think we'll go right to Chloé Arsenault to hear her journey so far.
Okay, so we're back, and we're now very pleased to be joined by Chloé Arsenault. Chloé is a 21-year-old born and raised Sudbarian. She is enrolled at College Boreal and is the only woman currently enrolled in the civil and mining engineering technician program. Chloé began entering pageantry 5 years ago with a goal, a vision, and an objective. That's when she created a platform called Tiaras and Trades to raise awareness of opportunities for women in the skilled trades and to show that women are women outside of the workplace. She continues to spread her message that women can lead and succeed in the skilled trades industry. And her motto is, whether it's a hard hat or a crown, we're all queens. And we're now very pleased to have her join us on the Unlikely Innovators. Chloé, welcome to the show.
Hello, it's so nice to be here.
It's nice to have you. Typically when we do the show, we always ask our guests about, their career path and their journey and how they came to be where they are. But with you, you're still blazing your trail. You're in the civil and mining engineering program at College Boreal. You're working underground this summer. What made you want to get into the civil and mining engineering technology program at Boreal?
So it's kind of interesting. So I come from like a family background in the mining industry, and I've also like done a lot of technical practices like growing up. Like my grandfather always like bring me, so I'd weld his backhoes, and like I did like siding shingles. So I always did kind of that aspect. So I wanted to try to get some sort of job where it was both on a technical side but also on like a practical side. And this program provides both of those opportunities, as well as just a chance to go underground, which is like something I always thought was super cool. So something interesting is I actually have my grandfather's miner's lunch pail.
There we
And
go.
so every time people ask me, they're like, oh, like especially like the co-op students right now, they're like, oh my God, where'd you get your lunch pail? I was like, well, I was like 40 years old, so I don't know. It's my grandfather's. So he probably influenced me a lot and talked a lot about his mining history that kind of influenced me to kind of want to learn on my own. So now in the mining industry, there's both kind of like that practical, but also the technology aspect that's really growing into this industry. So it's very interesting work, and one day is never the same to the other. So that's kind of something that I really appreciate about this type of field, is that it's always interesting, and you can also start a task and watch it go from beginning to end, which gives you like that nice sense of accomplishment. And I feel like for me, towards like having like a job at a desk or something, like I wouldn't feel like I'm always like accomplishing something. Like this gives me the opportunity to feel like, wow, I made that or I built that. So kind of like that was what inspired me to go into my program.
And Chloé, it's so nice to meet you. This is Steve. I I've been underground a few times. Mike and I had the fortune or misfortune, no, I'll
It
say
was a
fortune,
fortune.
visiting Snow Lab, which, as you know, is quite far down in Creighton, and I think that's where you're spending your summer for your underground work. Um, what's your experience been like working underground, and sort of take us through if there's any other aspiring mining engineering technology folks out there. What just tell us a bit about that experience. Was it sort of what your grandfather told you about, or was it there some new things that sort of cropped up for you?
Yeah, so it's funny because he'll tell me the past and I'll tell him the future.
Right.
So when I'll tell him like, oh, like this is what we do, he's like, wow, it's so safe now. And I'm like, yeah, but there's like 20 million safety procedures. So Creighton is probably, I would say, the deepest mine in Sudbury. I'm not 100% sure, but it is all the way developed to 8,500 feet underground. And I have been to the face all the way there underground. So, there's challenges working at that depth. Not a lot of mines have really, like, it's trial and error. That's what ground control and all these things that we're implying, like it's kind of like we don't have anything to really reflect on. So could be a little scary, I guess, in that way, but it's cool to know, like, they're planning to go way past 10,000. So that's crazy. And it's really, really cool. Like underground, like when I say it's a whole different world, like it is a whole different world, and you don't believe it for yourself till you're there to see it. And like even just like Creighton, there's like the little train ride and snow labs on the way and stuff like that. So just like, everybody has a mission, go underground, do your work, and everybody wants to come back on surface. I think it's super cool, and like, there's so much going on at all times, like between the big rock trucks coming up and everybody's just going down this ramp. It feels like you're in like Super Mario Bros. And people are like cruising down there. And I feel like the days go by so fast too, because there's just so much going on. Like even when you get the opportunity to see things that aren't not specifically related to my program, it's still cool to see. Like we sat back and watched Scoop load up a truck, and so like things like that are outside of my program. And also the fact that I know it's easy to kind of like alternate between jobs in the mines. Like there's always opportunity to grow, and there's always opportunity to try something different. And I think that's really fascinating because they're like the huge job posting boards, and you're not limited. Like I'm not limited to stay just in the technical services. I could branch off into almost anything, especially in the mining industry. We have everything, every single trade, all the way up from like people that don't mention like HR departments, medical departments. Like these are all jobs that are within the mines. And I think people forget to mention that there is other things outside of just being a miner. When you have welders, you have millwrights, mechanics, electricians, like everybody is together. And it's cool because you can learn off of other trades, especially like during my training, like there was an electrician in my group, and he shared some information that I didn't know that was pretty cool to hear. So you get to kind of meet people in different fields, and everybody has like a cool message or a saying or just like knowledge you didn't know. So I feel like I'm always learning too. So that's kind of my experience up to date, is that like there's some things I had no idea about, and then within a day I'm learning a new thing each day. So super.
Didn't you find, well, maybe this is just my experience, that it's a long way down, but the cage ride actually doesn't take very long.
No.
You're humming down there pretty fast, eh?
Yeah, everybody always said like the cage is really an experience, and that's the first thing I called my grandpa that day, and I said, holy, like not gonna say yeah, everybody's like butt to butt in there, and you get up close, you're like sardines. And it goes fast. It actually goes 1,200 feet a minute. So I got that information. So it goes all the way to the 72 level. And then you take that train, which brings you to the ramp where all of the activities are kind of happening all at once. So yeah, it is very fast. It is actually, it used to be one of the fastest cage rides in Canada, but they had to slow it down.
That's a slowed down cage. Wow. Yeah,
that's a slow down cage.
Because it is an experience. That was when Steve and I did that podcast at Snow Lab. That was the first time I'd ever been proper underground, and it was. People have talked about it, but you really have to experience it yourself to really get it.
And like the funny part was on our first day. So I'm with two other co-op students, and on our first day, the guy who was like doing our orientation, he kind of brought us on like that first initial underground tour, actually asked the cage tender to put it half speed. So when we were in the cage, I was like, everybody was like, oh, the cage is going so slow today. And everybody's complaining. I'm sitting, I'm like, my gosh, I feel like this is fast. And everybody's like complaining. And we get to the bottom and they're like, oh no, we asked them to go half speed. I was like, that's half speed?
Yeah.
So I've done full speed now and it's okay. But yeah, I just thought that was funny because I thought that was fast and that was half speed. So
Yeah, that's wild. You know, one of the things that I've been kind of reflecting on this, that the work that we do here at Cambrian College, we work with a lot of students in the skilled trades and engineering technology programs on research projects. And one of our engineers, Patrick, and I had the idea that before one of our welding students graduated this year, we wanted him to try to teach us how to weld. And now Pat's a mechanical engineer, so he's much more technically inclined than me. So I knew that I was going to be a difficult study, but I did welding for a couple hours one afternoon, and I've always appreciated like how much skill is required to do skilled trades because of the nature of the work that we do here. But until I did it myself, like it became a whole new appreciation because I saw what they do on a daily basis. And for me to try it again, I only did it for a couple hours, but it really put things into perspective, how much like skill, patience, and time goes into mastering a skilled trade. And, you know, you mentioned earlier how, you know, you used to help your grandfather and, you know, welding and things like that. But since formally entering like your skilled trades education training, has there anything that stuck out to you that you're like, wow, like, you know, I knew a little bit of this, but like now seeing this and doing it myself, I really appreciate, you know, this more than I ever had?
yeah, actually kind of up related to my department because like the mines technical services is where I'm with right now. So under engineering because I'm taking the college route, but I didn't realize like, so you like split that department and it becomes like a bunch of little departments. So like in the engineering, you have like your ground control, your ventilation, and then I do more of surveying. So all those like they're all little separate programs, but literally all linked in together. And I got more of a better understanding about like how important ground control is. I would say really because that's one of the most hazard place to be is what's holding everything together, right? And then kind of have a better understanding of how it works and why we have certain procedures that we do. And just that everybody has to be formed about ground control underground because that's literally the biggest thing we could have because with mining procedures comes with different difficulties because we're unstabilizing the ground and could be like I want to say like there's activities of like rock shifting and stuff due to blasting or on solid grounds. So kind of understanding like, you know, hazardous issues too and having to be very like opening or eye-opening whenever you're walking in certain areas and be ready to report whenever you see something that seems a little unsafe. So yeah, I guess the importance of ground control really kind of mind-blowing. I had a 4-hour presentation last week about it, so I soaked up all that knowledge, I would say. But it was cool to have a better understanding about that and kind of just know what to look out for and to be safe, really what matters the most. And nobody wants to get hurt. There's a book that's the mining book is written about all these injuries, right? And we don't want to keep growing that anymore. But it's almost like trial and error. Every time something goes bad, we learn or a new procedures added. So now there's like tens of millions acronyms underground. Those are they're a little difficult to learn, but everything's there for a reason now. And I would say like goal is to mine safe, but some little things happen or people don't always follow rules. So being aware for your own safety and that's kind of what I've been learning more. So not be afraid.
And what I mean, obviously, I'm sure you don't learn that in the textbooks, right? I mean, you learn the theory, and then like ground control becomes very, very important when you're walking under it, right? And I think that's something you can only learn by doing. You might be surprised. So I want to talk a bit about Tiaras and Trades, if we could switch gears to that. You might be surprised to know that we had, for a time here, our own sort of encounter with Tiaras and Trades, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Speaking of welding, we actually had a welding student work in our applied research group for a while named Darby, who is actually also She did as her talent in the Harvest Queen competition in Temiskaming Shores. She welded something on stage live, so she actually was a tradesperson while also being a um,
Harvest
uh,
Queen.
Harvest Queen. So I think when we saw that in your bio, we're like, wow, remember Darby did something like that. But I wanted to give you a chance um, to just talk about uh, Tiaras and Trades and what made you want to get into pageants and how that's helped you sort of spread the message that you have that you're spreading.
Yeah, so actually I'll just add on that. So I did do my talent this year and I changed attire on stage.
Oh yeah.
So
That's great.
it is on my social media. I obviously it was a displayer. I didn't bring a real vehicle on stage, but I actually had somebody reach out to me and say that her younger cousin ended up asking his father to change a tire the next day, and she sent me pictures.
Oh wow.
So it's crazy to think that, you know, you do something just because you want to demonstrate, and it actually makes a small impact. So when I got that, I felt so shocked because I didn't think that anybody would think much more of my talent, but it actually educated somebody younger to try hands-on work. So definitely little things can go a long way. But I started pageantry 5 years ago now. So I was 15 at the time. Actually, I would say almost 6. I just turned 21. So, and the whole idea behind it was my mom actually did Miss Ontario when she was 15. And we kind of fell up upon the website when I was that age. And she's like, oh, you should sign up and see where that'll go. And I didn't think much more of it. So I signed up, I did the interview, and I got in, and I didn't know anything about pageantry at that point. Like I was in wood shop welding and was very out of my element. And, but I decided to try it. It was a really cool experience. I was like, oh, let's just do it. And I didn't realize how much work goes into it, as well as the opportunity to kind of be a leader and a role model and to develop great life skills, in a sense where there's interviewing processes, there's onstage questions. Like these help develop young women too, and these are great skills to take along with you, because you going into a presentation in school, like I'm not afraid to do that because I've already spoken in front of hundreds of people, and I've learned to develop my own communicational skills, which is a great asset to your life every day. So because of that, I kind of realized like, wow, there's a lot that goes behind the scenes instead of what we actually see on stage. And that's where it was like crazy to me to think. And I kind of just fell in love with pageantry because I realized how empowering that event can be, and how you can also empower other people because of it. So my platform started because I realized that there's this misconception that if you're a female in the trade, you have to be masculine or keep like a masculine personality at all times. And I think it's not true. I think it's important that if you are a girly girl outside of work, like you can celebrate that and you can be proud of that, and you shouldn't be ashamed of that. And that's where I thought it'd be super cool to kind of collide these opposite worlds, because I love my career choice. I love anything to do with the skilled trades. Like that's who I am, but I'm also a female outside of that. And I also love the opportunity to have a big dress and do things that are like girly and just kind of completely opposite of what I do. So I started getting a lot of recognition because especially women in the trades, they were like, oh, like she's doing this, like that's so cool, like I want to do this. So it kind of created like a super cool environment where it's like, I just witnessed actually a civil engineer win Miss Canada. I think it was like 2 weeks ago, and I DM'd her and I messaged her and I talked to her, and then she started like posting my stuff. So it's just like creating this full circle, right? Because it was just like we think pageantry, and we think either it's a dancer, a singer, an actor, a model, but it's not that. It's much more than that. It's somebody who's a leader, wants to make a difference. And I think women in the skilled trades are underrepresented, so it's important to have a platform. And when you walk in a room, you have a crown and a sash. People want to hear what you have to say. So having a good message, especially to younger women, is important. So especially when they see like, oh wow, like she has a crown and a sash, and then you start talking about, well, I'm a welder, I'm a carpenter. It's just so cool, right? It's just like, this is what we celebrate now in 2023. So although I didn't walk away with the title, I definitely still was able to make a big difference in the pageantry world. And I have really no idea of stopping now. So I don't know where I want to head next, regardless if it's Miss Ontario or another system. I think my message is very relevant to today, and it's really important to be able to be that role model that I didn't see.
Well, that's actually, I have two young girls at home, and I would say that they definitely do tend to listen to people more that have a crown and a sash and a dress. So, the one question I wanted to have for you next was that, we see that, here at Cambrian, I'm sure you've seen it at Boreal. You mentioned you're the only woman in your class there, that women in trades are still underrepresented, along with other marginalized groups. And one of the things that I think we are starting to notice is that when I was in high school, skilled trades wasn't really marketed to us, like, even as a guy. And I think by the time you get to high school, if that's your first experience with it, like, maybe it's the opportunity has kind of passed you by to get interested in that. And so, like, I think I believe this, and maybe you believe this as well, that like you have to start talking to girls when they're younger, before they reach high school age, so that they already have an understanding of what skilled trades actually is, and where there's opportunities for them, and how they can be a part of that. So I know that I think you've done some mentorship with girls in our community, but I guess what would be your message to young girls now who may not have considered, skilled trades as an option for them when they grow up? You talk to kids now, and what do I want to be when you grow up? And you often don't hear kids saying, I want to be a welder. And maybe that's just because they haven't heard about that yet, and they don't know what that entails. But what would be your message to a young girl, whether you have the sash or not? But what would you say to them to try to encourage them to consider skilled trades as an option?
I think another issue with that, like you said, like it was definitely to a certain point. I want to say not too long ago, but it was like discouraged the trades, right? Like people were like, either you had a family member who was like, oh, my knees hurt now, or my back's sore now, like don't go into it. And that for a big time frame was kind of the idea. So for so long we pushed like away from it. Until now we are where we're at now, and we're like, oh my gosh, we need tradespeople, but we pushed it for so long. And especially being younger, like I was reading this article, and back in the day, they used to have grade 6, 7, and 8 actually have like little classrooms that were about not specifically skilled trades, but just do like hands-on work. And to me, I was like, wow, that's so crazy to think. Like I didn't know that was actually a thing in the past, right? Because it comes down to also like, is your family involved with it, or is your family involved with the skilled trades? Like, is your mom or your father like into these fields? Because that definitely influences younger children or younger women and young guys as well. Because if you don't grow up in a family who's familiar with that, if your mom's a doctor or a nurse and your father is a paramedic, it's foreign to you, because it's not a conversation around the table. And that is, I think, and also an issue is that if they're not introduced to it, how can young children be involved or want to learn about it if you're not involved? So I'm glad to see these organizations happening now, and these young skilled trade events, because it's exposing younger children to the opportunity to learn and try tools, which I think young children should be able to try powered tools with people who are in the industry and in the field. So my message is definitely to try to like be part of those events as prevalent as they are, or signing up to them, because I know I did there was a Olympic engineering competition that I did, and at one point we ended up doing like a quiz on the wall, and it was like you had to pick your answer on your phone, but it'd be, what trade is this? And then it was a picture of the trade, and there would be like 4 options. And to get these, this was a young girl geared event, but to get them to try to like guess, oh, is that an electrician or is that plumbing, right? And kind of getting the idea of trades at a younger age. So I definitely think not only for younger children to try to sign up or participate, but also parents to involve their children in these types of activities, because it's really important, if regardless you're involved with the trades as a parent or not. But I think it's great opportunities for kids to be better educated. Like I wish, even myself, like I got out of high school 4 years ago, and a lot of the initiatives for young women in the trades kind of started while I was at the end of high school. So it's very recent. Like I would say in the last 5 years, it's really boomed like up to where it's at now. So I didn't have the opportunity to do those things as well. So for myself, I was always the only girl in woodshop and welding every year. And to me, like the idea that there would be these types of events was so like foreign. Like I didn't think that I'd be where I'm at today and being part of those and leading those, right? So it's crazy to see kind of like how within 4 years it's really changed, because I wish I had the opportunity to be sitting there and meeting people in the industry, right? And like explaining like, this is the type of like the wages that I'm making. Every day I get to do something, or I build something, and kind of like putting that idea out. So my message is to always, especially to the younger girls or younger people in general, to just be very involved in trying to learn things. And like, if your mom or your dad is building something, you just be present and try to ask questions and really try to involve yourself, because you can learn a lot in such a little amount of time too, if you want to be interested. So I think trying to take away that social media and the phone time away, and getting kids really involved. Like right now I'm building a fence with my dad, right? So it's like just learning to take time away from like media and put time into little things, rather it's just little lessons in the garage, or even changing a tire. That's something so important that is so undertaught. And it's crazy to think, because you shouldn't have to be calling somebody over to change a tire. It's so easy, but we just don't teach younger people about it anymore, because we just assume, oh well, if there's a problem, I'll call somebody to tow my vehicle, or and then you're spending so much more money on expenses for something that is literally so easy to learn. And that is I think that's a big issue, because you should be confident in driving your vehicle, and the most common thing to happen is a tire. So that's why that was kind of the idea why I did that in the pageant, because I even made a little message at the beginning where it said, a lot of people actually don't know how to change tires, and it's something so easy, and it's such a skill that you should have to be confident while driving your vehicle. And it doesn't take a lot to learn, but I think really exposing children to little things like that and getting them to try hands-on stuff.
Yeah, it's such a fundamental skill, and you're right that I think even now, like people, it's like almost like people think of it as like a superpower, because it's just so it's not taught. And I remember when I forget who taught me how to change a tire, but I learned when I was younger, and I think when I was maybe still in high school, yeah, it must have been high school. My mom got a flat, and I was with her, and I changed the tire, and I felt the pride of like knowing that. I think she thought that, what are we gonna do? Like, I can't change this, and like you probably can't, but it's like, no, I know how to do this. I took auto class and I did it. And then since then, it's just like it's an important skill to have. So yeah, I think that was a great demo to have for sure.
Yeah, and I just want to go. Sorry, go ahead, Chloe. Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say I wanted to pick up on one thing that you said, and then I wanted to ask you another question. But I don't know about you guys, but to me, like my dad was a tradesperson growing up, a heavy duty mechanic, and it was almost as if he dissuaded my sister and I from going the trades route. He basically felt it as a point of personal pride that his kids would go to university instead of college. I think that's starting to change now, but I think we had a whole generation of folks that should have been taking more pride in their trades and passing that on to the rest of their family. Have you ever seen anything like that, Chloe?
I I follow quite a bit in the social media forums, and that is something that I hear a lot of. And there was a gap at one point where definitely like it was like, oh, if you go to university, like you'd be so successful. And not dissing like universities or anything like, because definitely it's still a good career route depending what you want to do. But I think it was so like discouraged to the point where it was like, oh, like if you're in a trade, you're just less of,
Exactly.
And it created for a while kind of like an impression where it was like, even like teachers in the orientation room, it was like, for me, I even experienced when I said I wanted to go to college, they were like, you don't want to, like, in my grade 12, it was kind of my pivotal point. They were like, if you don't take advanced classes, you can't go to university. And I said, I don't want to go to university because I like building things. And it was almost like a discouraging feeling, right? Like in high school too, it's still sometimes a little relevant where they'll be like, oh, don't go that route, right? And it was like, but why? Because I love doing this. And it's not because I can't do university courses. I'm very capable of. I can write essays, I can do these things, but it's not what I'm interested in, and it's not the type of career I want to do. So why should I feel as if I'm making a mistake going to college? And that's what it felt like for a bit, having her say like, you can't go to university now. It did stick with me, because I was like, am I making a mistake? And that gets into your head where it's like, am I like, am I throwing away my life now, basically, because I didn't want to do this, but I like building things, but now it's like, oh, maybe I should be. And it kind of did get to me for a bit. And I'm glad that I didn't allow it to actually affect my decision at the end of the day, because gonna have a very successful career with good benefits, good wages, and interesting jobs to do every day. So, and this was recent, and this is still recent too, which is easy to think. And it was also because I was the only girl in my in those shop classes. So it was just like teachers, it's almost like they went to university, so they're like, like these students need to go to university too because we did it. And look at us, and it's like, kind of where
even still calling it advanced versus that makes it just seem like higher. For some reason, it's not that at all. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I think when you and I, because Steve and I went to high school a lot longer ago than you did, but when we were going to high school, they were called college and university courses. And I remember this because I was not strong in math, that like I was taking the college stream courses, and they're like, well, you're not going to get to go to university if like you're only taking college courses. I'm like, well, I don't know what this means right now, because I don't even know what I want to do, but I now oversee, $1 million grants. So I guess in the end, it all worked out. Not that strong in math at the time, but you grow these skills as you get older. But again, I think I think there still has a long way to go if that's still the experience that you were getting, not that long ago. But Chloé, obviously you've been very generous with your time. And I know that Steve and I say that with every guest that we have, and we mean it every time. But before we let you go, it sounds like you've got a really bright future ahead of you, but we do always have to ask our guests, like, what's next for Chloé, and what's next for Tiaras and Trades, if you want to leave us with a teaser.
Well, I can't release something, so I guess to say something's coming. I can put, but I think I'm just enjoying my summer right now. It's my first like really great experience that I'm having. I'm working for Valet Crate and Mine. I'm extremely deeply underground and then back on surface at the end of my shift. So I'm just learning. I think I'm just really getting the experience this summer. And then next year, I'm going to be doing my final year of school. So I definitely have more plans of being involved in women in trade related events. And I'm definitely excited to be part of those. They were very fun and super great to see, educating young girls about these opportunities. But I could see myself going into another pageant. I don't know where yet, but I hoped that I will, because I think there's so much you can do with a platform like this, and there's so much you can gain from experiences like that as well. So I'm definitely not done with the pageant route. Just got to figure out where I want to go exactly. And I guess, that's kind of my next steps. Just enjoy my summer, work, and then see where next year takes me. But I am working on something, though.
Well, of course you are. Chloé Arsenault, thanks so much for joining us. Before we go, where can people find you on social?
So I have 2 media pages on my Facebook and Instagram where it's my Tiaras and Trades account. So on Instagram, it's Miss_Chloé_Arsenault. And on Facebook, it's Chloé Arsenault's pageant journey. So on there, it's kind of my Tiaras and Trades platform. So it has both aspects. Sometimes it's videos of work-related things, or sometimes it's educational pageant things too, because there's, like I said, so much behind the scenes that happens that we only see the part on stage, but we don't see the tons of times where you practice public speaking, interview questions, and learning to walk confidently and to have a great message. So I think I like to share and highlight kind of some of the things I did. I prepared for nearly 9 months to compete this year, so it was a pretty long journey, and it was very, very rewarding though. So that's where I can be kind of found.
Awesome. Thanks so much again for joining us, and we know there's going to be really bright things in your future, so we'll check back in a while to see if that big thing has happened yet for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks again, Chloé. Appreciate it. That was, like you said, Steve, very inspiring chat with Chloé. Again, I feel like we're not doing enough. She's certainly doing a lot at her age. So I go back to when in my younger days of what I was doing. But again, I think it takes a lot to be so, I think, concerted with these efforts and deliberate with what she's doing. I think she knows exactly how to take advantage of both those platforms and really try to encourage, young girls from a variety of different backgrounds and perspectives to consider this route. I just really have to go back to the whole changing a tire on stage is such a great thing. I think, when you mentioned how Darby had welded on stage, I think that's also awesome because, like I said, I have a newfound appreciation for welding, but I just really want to reiterate how like fundamental changing a tire is. It's something where I think the girls have seen me change our winter tires in the driveway from time to time, but I think now after having talked to Chloe, like I think it's kind of it's almost time to start talking about what I'm doing and why it's important and showing Zoe that she can do this too, right?
For sure. And I mean, I was around a lot of trade stuff when I was a kid, and I frankly would much rather be playing video games. But I think it was always this funny thing we had in our household. I'd be found helping my mom plant flowers in the garden while my sister was helping my dad change out a transmission in a dump truck. So an interesting dichotomy between my sister and I. But now I work very close to skills trades every day, and I'm thankful I'm able to do that all the time. So again, very inspirational. I can't wait to see what she's working on that she was a bit tight-lipped
Yeah.
about at the end, but I'm sure it'll be as inspirational as what she's done so far. And of course, you know, do look out for the annual event that we have going on at Cambrian College, which is of course Jill of all trades, which is sort of made to for a couple days every year advance this kind of thinking and agenda to get more women and girls involved in trades and technology. So we're trying to do our part, but more people like Chloé Arsenault will make this a lot easier for all of us.
Yeah, no, I think the world needs more Chloé Arsenault. So I think there's no better way to wrap up the show than with that. So again, thanks for joining us. Check Chloe out on her social media accounts to follow her pageantry journey and to see what she's doing in the world of skilled trades. And we'll see you next week. Steve is waving by. You can't hear that.
The Unlikely Innovators with Mike Commito and Steve Gravel. Presented by Cambrian R&D and the Center for Smart Mining.